So for today, we want to talk about this theme, right? We have heard about many things about AI, how to use AI, how SREs can use AI. But the question is, SREs are able to become AI engineers or ML engineers? And of course, the answer is yes. And how many of you have heard about Niall Murphy? Does it ring a bell? Niall Murphy is the co-author of Site Reliability Engineering, the first book of SRE when he was with Google. And one of his questions was about if you don't know who developed the code. That's the case today because we have Copilot, we have so many AI assistants. Who is going to be on call? Okay. So that also is a provoking question because we need to understand AI ML. We need to know to learn those things if we want to be on call and support those workloads, because you don't know who developed them. Now we have co-programmers, right? So that's the theme for today. And I like to start this conversation. Let me introduce myself first. Rather than Greg Pruett, we are with Kendra. Kendra is a spin-off of IBM. So although we have been working with IBM for long years, we just have now 3 years in existence as a separate company. And I'd like to start this conversation with this talk. If you want to be a successful SRE, you need to put that as a profession, and profession, passion, they mix up. This is basically the same thing. If you're not passionate about your profession, then it's pretty hard to continue with learn new things. And the AI brought us so many new things. So I'm Brazilian. Also like to cook. I'm a SRE coach at Kendra. I have this co-author of this book, and I have Greg.
Greg Pruett. I'm Vice President and Distinguished Engineer in Kendall. Or Rod put that I'm a semi-pro hiker.
Yep.
I don't even think that's a thing. I'm not pro at anything athletic, but this is me at the end of the Mountains to Sea Trail in North Carolina. So it's a cool picture at least.
Yeah, great. I like the term. And how many of you have used ChatGPT, mainly for creating your own picture using the Ghibli art? And this was one of the first saturation problems, right? Saturation problem is an SRE problem. And we are now living in a convoluted AI world. How many of you have read Article Archive? 10 articles. Okay, we have a data scientist there, but other than this single person, it's a very increasing number of papers, right? Every day we see a new method, a new framework for AI. Just to give you some numbers, it's a $500 billion market now. It's big, the biggest market in this history. And AI is not just machine learning. You have now large language models, you have small language models, you have other types of models. It's not just anymore. And guess what? AI is being used most of the time for services, customer services. So SREs are intrinsically related to AI. And that brings us a new operating system. And I like to call that as easy mode, right? We started like that. You have the training data, you have the algorithm, the learning algorithm, and then you have a model. Now you can use this model to predict, to infer values, to infer results. It's easy, right? We can monitor the learning algorithm. We can check the loss function signal. It's a number. And I can monitor that. I can create an SLI on this. Very simple. Oh, if it is increasing, bad. If it is decreasing, good. So far, so good. So it's not different from any software system that we monitor as SREs. But this is the easy mode, right? Then we said, this is not repeatable. This is not orchestrated. This is not scalable. Guess what? We need something else. We need ML ops. We need machine ops. We need to implement DevOps principles in this pipeline. We need to take care of data now. Without good data, I don't have good models. Okay? And this is the hard mode. It becomes a little bit tricky, and I still need to monitor this. I still need to create automation, orchestration, and scale this model for my workloads. And now I have data pipelines. It's becoming something else. It's not just system reliability. Now I need data reliability. I need data ops. I need data ops engineers. So it's become more and more complex. And guess what? Now I have the extreme mode. So this is how we need to operate nowadays with so complex systems. You have so many roles now. You have the data analyst or data scientist. You have the security specialist because you need to ensure you don't have data breaches. You don't have AI cursing to your customers.
Privacy.
Yeah. You need a data ops engineer to take care of the data pipelines. You need DevOps engineer to create the CI/CD pipelines, but not just the CI/CD pipelines. You have infrastructure as code pipeline. You have observability as code pipelines. It's pipelines everywhere. And you have SRE. SRE will take care of this platform and worry about automation and observability. So everything here needs to be observed. We need metrics, we need logs, we need traces, of course. And there is a governance around all these models. So this is how we envision these so complex AI systems and the key role of SREs. And if you think about the new technology stack, you probably have seen the Leonardo da Vinci Vitruvian human. This is the Vitruvian AI, right? So if you think about what is the perfect AI system, if I could use now the best technology available today, what I would have on this picture. So basically, it's not just AI or machine learning model anymore, but a combination of models. You need multiple machine learning models. You need large language models if you want to have generative AI. You also need small language models if you want to serve your users on the edge, on devices, right? The AI is moving toward to watches, to edge devices. So you're going to need small language models as well. Also, it's a multimodal AI world. It's not just text. Now you need to do video, you need to do pictures and songs, right? Or any type of noise, right? That's it. What else? You need to be able to ingest data from external knowledge. So we are talking about RAG here, right? Retrieval augmented generation. It's not just generation, but also retrieval. You need to include the context of AI so you can generate a proper result. So RAG is the arm here on this Vitruvian AI. Also, you want to have access to tools, to automation, to Ansible playbooks, chat recipes. How you do that? Now we have agent AI. So we have nowadays the first frameworks where you're able to link your AI decision to an agent, and this agent can execute tasks for you. This Vitruvian AI has a heart because now it's possible to analyze your tone, your sentiment. And every time I try to send an email to Greg, I use these mechanisms to say, oh, I'm not being so polite with Greg. So it's a tool, right? It's something you can use. And this Vitruvian AI ingests a lot of data. And I put the vector DB as a stomach. It will continue to ingest data and transform this data in vectors, embeddings. So I can consult those embedded as vectors, which is much more efficient. And the legs here, you have the AI hyperscalers. So AWS, Google, Azure, they can provide you the platform, the computing power to run those workloads. Also, you have now GPU acceleration, you have CUDA, you have NVIDIA. So those would be your legs. So this is what would be considered a perfect AI stack, okay, nowadays. And you need to worry about all those things because they need orchestration, they need automation, they have toil, they have administrative tests, they have observability requirements. And let me hand over to Greg for more examples.
Thanks, Rod. So Rod and I both come from a company called Kyndryl, as he was saying. We're a spin out of IBM. Company's just over 3 years old. A big company. We're a services company, a system integrator, over 75,000 employees. And our delivery organization itself is probably 55,000 of those employees. Out of that, we've undergone a huge transformation, growing DevOps and SRE skills within the company. And Rod and I actually have two jobs. One job is that we're responsible for the SRE community. Just a give back job, right? It's more about defining the career path, the progression, the skills and the capabilities, and how you get promoted. In my other job, I lead the global architecture for our AI platform, which kind of brings the two topics of this talk together. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what some of those challenges are. And there's a lot of people that have to get trained on a lot of new technology that's changing about every 8 months. Now, I was at GTC a few weeks ago, and people were talking about RAG like it was this old legacy technology. And I'm like, I just learned about RAG like less than 12 months ago. How can it be outdated already? But there's RAG 2.0. I don't know what you call it now, but there's still the whole go retrieve context before running inference flow. But there's all sorts of new things, knowledge graphs, and lots of places you can go get context from agents and so forth. So there's all this rapidly changing set of things. So part of our role is to enable and train our SREs to be able both to use AI, but also to run AI for our clients. And so that's at a high level, that's our challenge that we're working on in our jobs. And there's just an explosion of pipelines. So I think Rod described it very well. There's not a pipeline. It's not a data pipeline. There's all these different functions from data ingestion, filtering, validation, and then you've got on your AI pipeline, you've got the context retrieval, you've got your validation of data, deploying models, serving those, and running inference. There's a lot of complexity. Go to the next. And back to the title of the talk, we talk about it as the duality. It's a dual role. Our SREs have to play two roles. In terms of running infrastructure and running applications, they've got to be the ones that lead the adoption of AI, using AI, how we use it to better improve our services and our capabilities. So our SREs are the ones who own and they're responsible for our AI ops. They're responsible for observability data. They're responsible for SLOs and metric collection, getting that into our AI ops tool and being able to get insights. And so our 55,000 people work off of insights. So the SREs are enabling this broad community of delivery engineers to be able to make use of these insights. And the delivery engineers, their goal every day is get to green, right? Get your dashboard, get the red stuff off your dashboard, get your insights handled, get back to green. But the SREs are the leaders who are we're leading and driving those insights and constantly improving the insights in our AI ops capability. Using AI in automation, agentic's new, but what we've been doing for years is improving automation and triggering automation off insights. That's another key aspect and responsibility of SRE. And then the code generation, to be able to generate automation, again, it's a new area for us. We're learning, we're experimenting, we're understanding the guardrails that we need to put around that. Another powerful way in which we can use AI as SREs. On the right-hand side, this is more about building and running AI platforms for our customers. And there's a lot of complexity here as well, right? I mentioned the retrieval and generation pipeline. A normal Gen AI pipeline would talk to a RAG, retrieval augmented generation system, like a vector database, to go get context, pull in current context in addition to the language model. The RAG itself is a database. It's a database that needs a database engineer to manage the collections. So the whole maintenance of all the data coming into the RAG pipeline or into the vector store is called indexing. So the indexing pipeline is scanning documents, chunking documents, creating the embeddings, inserting the vectors into the vector database. But that field is expanding, right? It's not just vector databases, like I said, it's knowledge graphs. So maybe you have an org chart, right? Maybe you have a tool that's an org chart and it has a graph with all of these relationships that say these are my department members and this is my boss and my reporting chain. That org chart might be a valuable input as well as context for the language model. And then a lot of our clients run on cloud, on hyperscalers, but actually a lot of our clients still want to run on-prem. And so we build AI private cloud and sovereign clouds actually for customers who want to run these platforms. And so just to dive into the day in the life of SREs running these AI platforms, just to try to give a little bit more context for what we do. I listed a bunch of things that I call pipelines, but like the first one is more the app development environment. So it's like running a Jupyter Hub, enabling users to use Jupyter notebooks to access the platform. You've got the data ingestion and preparation pipe that we showed a minute ago. Indexing being that, the pipeline for creating the embeddings and inserting them into a vector database collection. Knowledge graph, building the knowledge graphs. To use a knowledge graph, you also need to have something in your query pipeline called entity detection. So a knowledge graph has discrete values in the nodes and discrete relationships, but a natural language query may not exactly match those terms. To use a knowledge graph, you actually have to call an AI function, a generative AI function that says, match this natural language to one of these known entities so that you can use a knowledge graph. There's the retrieval and generation. So if you're running VLLM as your inference engine or K-serve or NVIDIA Triton, that whole relationship of how you set up LangChain, inference, and RAG for that flow. Agentic, the talk earlier talked about really how you can include all of these agents as more data sources into your context, as well as include agents to take actions like workflows. This is an interesting new area, and there's all these now agent orchestrators, of course, like Crew AI, that can provide that type of functionality to integrate with your AI pipelines. And then you've got the outputs of your generative AI, guardrails on that output, policy, responsible AI, trying to prevent bias, prevent hate speech, cursing coming out of your AI. And then there's more underneath all of these new AI technologies, there's the more traditional running a container platform, like a number of the speakers have talked about today, just deploying applications on the platform, lifecycle management, as well as infrastructure management. So this is the scope of Kyndryl, I'll call them AI SREs. To use a sort of a new term, but for our SREs, they're leaders in the organization and creating and defining the operations for how to run these new platforms.
Yep. So very brief.
All right. So I don't know how much do we take, what, 2-3 hours or something? Oh, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
I have another presentation here.
Now you have a giveaway. How do we do the giveaway?
Yeah. So I think, there is a plastic bag there. So if you're interested, receive this copy. Of course, I can autograph this copy. And if I die, my fly back to Brazil, you have an available copy. So just put your name in the bag. But before we start this, any questions? Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. So in the pipelines that you were showing, there's data all over the place.
Yes.
Where is this data living? Is it like out on object storage, or there's got to be some, is there any, do you see any standardization in this? How's that being handled?
Yeah, nowadays, no, this data can be files, can be cloud object, can be tabular data, can be databases. So we have seen a variety of data source. And that's the reason, very reason you need a data pipeline, because you need to capture all those data sources, standardize them, and normalize them. There are various steps in the data pipeline that are required before you can use that data as a training data. So the sources vary a lot. Can be objects, can be tabular data, can be CSV files, can be...
Right. Yeah, and I guess the intent of my question is that data pipelines are a pain in the butt. The more of them there
Yeah,
are.
today we don't have tooling for...
Yeah.
We are starting to have tooling.
Yeah.
Now we have the docling. I'm not sure if you have seen this library, docling. We have the Iceberg from Apache.
That's what I work with
starting
that.
to
So,
see.
because you need to get to some common representation
Yeah.
so that you can both reduce the number of pipelines and also avoid having multiple copies of approximately the same thing. So it sounds, so are you seeing much adoption of things like Iceberg for that problem?
The customers are starting to adopt Iceberg or docling or any tool because there are not so much available options today. So they will get another first one. But today is most of the time it's not a fully automated pipeline. You need to have some scripts or proprietary code to clean up the data. Sometimes it's just a Python script that gets rid of multiple space.
Right.
But you don't imagine how these interfere with the training data. I have now one experiment here. I think I'm able to show you. So this is my Frankenstein SRE. This is an experiment. This is based on Nano GPT. This is GPT version 2. So I trained this GPT large language model with 4 SRE books. And just to test how important is the data, the training data, right? And you can see it doesn't do a good job, right? If you read what he's throwing out, it doesn't make sense. And the reason for that is because my data is not normalized. There are various techniques that I need to apply to text, even just for text. If I want to get to a point that I can train a large language model. And now this large language model can produce interesting insights about the SRE books. You see, it doesn't make sense, right? It's gibberish shit. And if you check now my input data here, oh, sorry, this one. I still need to do a better job here, right? This confuses a lot in the large language model. See chapter 29, see chapter 32. This will create a conflict inside the large language model. This is a bad training data. And we have ways to pass certain algorithms and provide an index. And it can use this index as a SLI. So you can put service level indicators even for the training data. So all the classical SRE stuff still works on those pipelines. Of course, you need to work with a data scientist to understand what is this index, what is the best index or the best KPI for your data. But it's a huge work yet.
Yeah. Thank you.